The most devastating financial penalty you will ever pay is the cost of buying the exact same childhood twice. Imagine taking every single resource required to raise a human being, the food, the clothing, the square footage, the electricity, the toys, the very space they occupy, and multiplying it by 2, while simultaneously slicing your household income in half. This is the brutal, unspoken mathematics of a fractured home. For a highly invested, deeply loving parent, the initial shock of a split is emotional. The grief is loud and it is all-consuming. But the lingering, suffocating reality that follows is purely logistical, and it is completely silent. You spent your adult life climbing. You built a career, secured a title, and accumulated the resources to give your family everything they could ever need. You did the work. You followed the blueprint. But the economics of a divided family do not care about your resume. They demand a brutal, uncompromising tribute. You aren't just moving out. You are tasked with cloning an ecosystem. Think about the sheer friction of duplication. 1 child. 2 addresses. It starts small. An extra toothbrush. A second set of pajamas so they don't have to pack a heavy overnight bag every Wednesday evening. It feels manageable. But then it scales. Winter boots. Bicycles. Laptops. An identical set of their favorite bedtime books, because God forbid they can't find that one specific story at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday at your house. The extra car seat permanently strapped into the back of your vehicle. Before you know it, you are curating a ghost town. You are paying an exorbitant premium for a home in a specific, fiercely expensive school district, just so you can remain geographically tethered to a person you are no longer with. You heat the empty rooms. You wash the duplicate sheets. You fill the refrigerator with the exact brand of organic strawberries they love, knowing full well that 50% of the time, that fruit will quietly rot in the crisper drawer while your child sleeps in a different zip code. You are bleeding cash, month after month, year after year. And you are doing it not to build wealth, not to get ahead, and not to invest in their future. You are burning through your life's savings just to maintain an illusion. The illusion of a seamless transition. The desperate, exhausting hope that if you just spend enough money, if you just replicate everything perfectly, your child won't feel the jagged, broken edges of their new reality. Every time you swipe your credit card for a second winter coat or a duplicate set of blocks, you are not buying an item. You are paying a guilt tax. The numbers are staggering. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars over the lifespan of a childhood, vaporized into the ether of dual logistics. It is enough to bankrupt a successful career. It is enough to keep you awake at 2 a.m, staring at a ceiling you can barely afford, wondering how you will sustain this pace for the next 15 years. But the sheer financial ruin of duplicating a childhood is just the surface of the nightmare. Because once the bank accounts are drained, a far more sinister economy takes over. The real cost isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in a silent, invisible bidding war that almost every co-parent is forced into without even realizing it. You never meant for it to become a competition. But the moment the ink dried on the custody agreement, a terrifying, invisible clock started ticking. You only have your child for exactly 3.5 days a week. And every single second feels like a high-stakes performance review. This is the silent, deeply shameful bidding war for your child's affection. It rarely starts with malice. It starts with a simple, agonizing guilt. You pick them up on a Friday afternoon, and you notice a slight, heartbreaking hesitation in their eyes. The transition between homes is jarring for them. So, you try to smooth the edges. You stop for ice cream before dinner. You buy the premium toy they pointed at in the store. You bend the bedtime rules, just a little. You want your house to be the sanctuary. You desperately want them to be happy. But then, the other parent notices. Maybe they hear about the new toy. Maybe they feel a shift in the child's enthusiasm. So they retaliate. Not with anger, but with an upgrade. A trip to the amusement park. A brand new tablet. A puppy. Suddenly, you are trapped in an escalating arms race of fun. Welcome to the trap of the Disneyland Parent. When your time with your child is strictly rationed by a court order, the pressure to optimize that time becomes unbearable. You stop being an authority figure, and you start acting like an exhausted cruise ship director. You pack every weekend with high-octane entertainment, terrified of a single moment of quiet boredom. Because in the back of your mind, boredom means they might want to go back to the other house. For a high-performing, driven professional, this dynamic is a psychological nightmare. You are wired to succeed. You are accustomed to outworking your competition. But how do you win a child's love when the other side is playing by different rules? You throw resources at the problem. Meanwhile, the essential, grounded work of parenting is quietly abandoned. The discipline, the chores, the homework, the boundaries, all of it falls by the wayside. No one wants to spend their precious, strictly limited 48 hours being the bad guy. No one wants to be the strict parent when the other house is handing out endless dopamine. So you let things slide. You compromise your core values. You buy things you cannot afford to impress a small human who probably just wants you to sit on the living room floor and build a fort. You become a hostage to their happiness. The financial drain is brutal, but the emotional cost is catastrophic. You are trading their long-term character development for your own short-term validation. You are mortgaging your child's future resilience just to secure a smile as they walk through your front door. Children are incredibly perceptive. Long before they understand the legal concept of custody, they understand leverage. They quickly realize that there are two separate sets of rules, two different thresholds for the word no, and two desperate adults willing to do almost anything to avoid a meltdown. You look at your drained savings and realize you are no longer just raising a child, you are running a customer loyalty program. But what happens when the child figures out they hold all the leverage? The answer to that question is exactly what pushes even the strongest parents into total emotional bankruptcy. The loudest sound in the world is the closing of your front door on a Sunday evening. The handoff is complete. The frantic energy of the weekend, the packing, the last-minute hugs, the carefully negotiated transfer of backpacks and favorite stuffed animals, suddenly evaporates. And what is left behind is an absolute, suffocating vacuum. You walk back into your home, and the silence is physical. It presses against your chest. The beautifully curated, painfully expensive duplicate bedroom you spent thousands of dollars outfitting is suddenly just a museum exhibition of a childhood. The action figures are frozen exactly where they were dropped. The bath towel is still damp on the rack. The half-finished glass of water sits on the nightstand, quietly evaporating. For the next several days, this house is a tomb. This is the agonizing reality of being a part-time physical presence in your own child's story. You are a successful professional. You are accustomed to being in the room where it happens. You lead meetings, you manage crises, and you steer outcomes. But when it comes to the most important project of your entire life, you have been forcibly relegated to the role of a spectator. The grief of absence doesn't hit you all at once, it bleeds you out in 1,000 tiny paper cuts. It is the phantom reflex of reaching for their favorite cereal in the grocery store aisle on a Wednesday, before remembering they aren't waking up under your roof tomorrow. It is the sudden, hollow ache of stepping on a stray Lego in the hallway and realizing you would pay any sum of money just to hear the chaotic noise that usually accompanies the mess. And then, there are the milestones. Your phone vibrates on your desk during a Tuesday afternoon conference call. You glance down to see a photo from your ex. A gap-toothed smile. The first lost tooth. Or a video of a game-winning goal on a muddy soccer field. You smile, you type back a string of enthusiastic emojis, but beneath the surface, your heart shatters. You weren't there. You missed it. You are watching your child grow up through a highly curated feed of text messages and weekend summaries. You are legally bound to miss half of their life. You miss the mundane magic. The quiet car rides home from school where the real conversations happen. The sleepy, unprompted confessions right before the lights go out. The invisible, microscopic moments of character building that only happen when you are sharing the exact same physical space day in and day out. This absence breeds a profound, toxic guilt. You look at old photographs of the original family unit, and a dark voice whispers that this fractured reality is your fault. Even if the split was necessary, even if it was the only healthy path forward, the guilt of tearing their universe in half refuses to let you go. It wraps around your throat. It dictates every interaction you have, pushing you further into the bidding war, and making you fundamentally terrified to disappoint them. Guilt makes you desperate. And desperation leads to the single most destructive mistake a co-parent can make, a mistake that threatens to permanently shatter the child's psyche. There is only one way out of this trap, but it requires a sacrifice that most people are absolutely terrified to make. The desperation to overcompensate leads directly to the most fatal trap of co-parenting. You stop viewing your ex as a parent, and you start viewing them as an opponent. You subtly weaponize your child. You drop passive-aggressive comments about the other household's rules. You interrogate your kid after a weekend away, mining for flaws in your ex's parenting to validate your own superiority. Without meaning to, you ask a vulnerable child to carry the crushing weight of your unresolved emotional baggage. To stop this catastrophic cycle, you must undergo something incredibly painful. You must experience a radical ego death. In any high-stakes divorce, your ego is screaming for justice. It wants the world to know you were right and they were wrong. It wants to prove, definitively, that you are the better, smarter, more capable caregiver. Your ego secretly wants the other household to stumble, just a little bit, so that your home can shine brighter by comparison. But here is the devastating truth that every successful co-parent eventually has to swallow: if your ex fails, your child fails. If the other household is chaotic, your child absorbs that chaos. If the other parent is financially ruined, your child bears the brunt of that scarcity. You cannot root against your ex without actively rooting against your own child's well-being. Achieving radical ego death means severing the emotional wreckage of your romantic failure from the logistical reality of your parental duty. It means accepting that your personal grievances, no matter how profoundly valid they are now entirely irrelevant to the mission. The dream of the original family structure is gone. Mourn it on your own time. Mourn it behind closed doors. But when you are standing in the driveway making the Friday afternoon handoff, you are no longer a wounded ex-spouse. You are a professional. This is not about forgiveness. You do not have to forgive them. You do not even have to like them. But you absolutely must respect the biological and psychological reality that this person is exactly one half of your child's universe. When you kill your ego, you stop keeping score. You stop viewing $1 spent at their house as $1 stolen from yours. You start defending the other parent in front of your child, not because your ex necessarily deserves it, but because your child's fragile nervous system requires the absolute security of knowing both their creators are solid. You bite your tongue. You send the extra winter coat to their house without a lecture. You absorb the friction, silently, because you are the adult and that is what the job demands. Killing your own ego is agonizing. It requires you to look across the table at the person who broke your heart, or completely upended your life, and offer them the most important job in the world. But how, exactly, do you transform your worst enemy into your most trusted partner? You stop treating it like a failed romance, and you start treating it like a high-stakes, multi-million-dollar corporate merger. Welcome to the enterprise of raising a human. When you strip away the emotional volatility, the hurt, and the history, what you are left with is a highly complex logistics company. You and your ex-partner are no longer lovers. You are the board of directors. Your child is not a prize to be won, they are the sole, invaluable asset of this joint venture. And the singular metric for success, the only key performance indicator that actually matters, is that asset's long-term physical, mental, and emotional stability. To run this enterprise successfully, and to stop the financial and emotional bleeding, you must implement brutal, corporate-level boundaries. Establish a strict communication protocol. You do not text your ex at 10 o'clock at night about a behavioral issue. You do not use phone calls to subtly litigate the past. You communicate exclusively through dedicated co-parenting apps or a shared email thread. You keep your tone brief, informative, and entirely devoid of emotion, exactly as you would with a colleague you barely tolerate but must work with to close a massive deal. Standardize the finances. The silent bidding war ends today. You create a shared, transparent ledger for the child's true expenses. You agree on an annual budget for clothes, extracurriculars, and healthcare. If an expense falls outside that negotiated budget, the parent who wants it pays for it entirely, without expecting reimbursement, leverage, or praise. Align the company culture. You do not need to share the exact same bedtime or screen time limits in both houses. But you absolutely must share the same core values. You must present a united, impenetrable front on discipline, education, and respect. When a child tests a boundary in one house, they must hit the exact same structural steel in the other. This strategy sounds incredibly cold. It sounds clinical, even robotic. But paradoxically, this rigid, business-like structure is precisely what creates the ultimate psychological safety for your child. You are constructing a massive, invisible firewall between your adult conflicts and their childhood. When the rules are clear, the anxiety vanishes. When the parents stop maneuvering for leverage, the child stops hypervigilantly scanning the room for danger. They realize they no longer have to manage their parents' emotions. They are finally free to just be a kid. You might carry the grief of a shattered family portrait forever. You will still hate the deafening silence in your house on Sunday nights. You will still wince when you swipe your credit card for a duplicate set of baseball cleats. But if you execute this strategy correctly, you will eventually realize a profound truth that changes everything. Two stable, healthy, strictly managed homes are infinitely better for a child than one broken, toxic one. You survived the financial hemorrhage. You escaped the bidding war. You killed your ego. And in doing so, you gave your child the greatest, most expensive gift a divorced parent can possibly offer: peace. The picture-perfect childhood you originally planned for them is gone forever. But this new life, this meticulously managed, deeply intentional enterprise you are building right now, it might just be the masterpiece that saves you both. The only question left is, are you ready to sign the contract?